You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. I am Daniel, and that is not Clint. It is John from John Tweet Sports on Twitter. John, how you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing great. I'm just glad to, fill this box with someone a little more handsome.
Look, where all the YouTube viewers are just standing in applause right now, just united in their celebration of the eye candy that's on the podcast. Also rocking the Martin's Barbecue Joint t-shirt, repping the home city of your boy here in Nashville.
Absolutely. Martin's Barbecue, not a sponsor, but Martin does have not yet.
Okay.
Wonderful barbecue in the Nashville area. Pat Martin also has a wonderful barbecue book that he just released that a friend of mine did the photos for. So go out and buy it.
Pat, reach out. Love to have you. Love to have you sponsor the show. We'll just get this. We'll get this thing going. Listen, this is a podcast for Georgia fans by Georgia fans. Clint, my co-host, would belabor this point right now, and so I feel I owe it to him to remind you that we are not gurus or insiders. We're going to be talking about spring practice. We're going to talk about rotation and some position groups, talking about the wide receivers today, talking about the offensive line today. We're not bringing you this perspective as a guru or insider because guess what? Nobody's bringing you this perspective as a guru or insider. Kirby shows you what he wants you to see, and then he lets you write your articles and do your things and whatever. But make no mistake, you're not getting any scoop. You're getting what he wants to give you. And so on this podcast, we just talk like fans. And so if you're here, listen on the audio side, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, Locked On Bulldogs, leave us a 5-star rating and review. Tell a friend about the show. Or if you're here on the video side over on YouTube, drop us a comment. Hit that thumbs up, that bell. All those things help us out a tremendous amount. We're here all off season. Clint and I are here. Got great guests coming on from time to time as we do tonight. So, John, let's jump in to the spring practice because we talked about the quarterback rotation earlier in the week. That generated some buzz. People were noticing the quarterback rotation, to put it mildly. But that's not the only position that you see people rotating in and out. And one of the most interesting positions is wide receiver. So I think we'll start there. We actually just said, I can't remember if it was yesterday or 2 days ago, we actually just said on this podcast, Kirby is blowing smoke. We are not actually that thin at wide receiver. It's not all that big of a deal how thin we are at wide receiver. Now, lo and behold, we got some guys taking reps at wide receiver, John, that's a bit unusual.
Mm-hmm. So there are reports that came out that are valid reports that an outfielder from the baseball team has been taking some practice reps at wide receiver with the Georgia.
Just Ronald Acuna Jr. is out there catching go routes.
Not quite, but his name is Randon, so close to Ronald. Jernigan,
I'll take it.
Who is an outstanding high school football player. Apparently has been taking some reps, and then there were reports that Malaki Starks, who 5-star athlete, played QB at Jefferson, but just an outstanding athlete, has also been taking some reps at wide receiver. So, I ask myself when I hear these things as a fan, you step back and you're like, but what does it mean?
What does it
even mean?
What does it even mean? Now, listen, I think I can just nip this in the bud. I don't think you're going to be seeing any outfielders on the baseball team catch any passes this fall for your national champion Georgia Bulldogs.
If we see that, we should all be very, very concerned.
Yes, I will allow you to freak out, Georgia fans. If that is the case, you are not overblown in freaking out.
No.
Malaki Starks, though, this is a guy that people thought might be playing a role on the defense. Like he might be a factor in a potential defensive role. I mean, it's not like the secondary is just swimming with proven depth. I mean, we do have some guys, but you got guys like Tyke Smith still out, still missing time. And obviously you lose a bunch of guys in that. You lose some guys in that secondary. I won't say a bunch of guys, but you do lose some guys in that secondary. Darion Kendrick, Lewis Seen, etc. And so what do you make of Malaki Starks getting time in the spring at wide receiver? What does it mean for wide receiver? What does it mean for Malaki Starks, John?
Yeah. Listen, I think so. I think if folks want to go back and watch Malaki Starks high school highlights, you will see nothing but speed and athleticism all over that field.
We talked about it at length when we broke him down on this. Yeah,
at length, and you put him. You put together. He's also 6'1", 200 and something pounds. I mean, it's a situation for me where you're in spring practice, you're an early enrollee. I actually really like it. I don't know that there's anything to be made of it, but I really like the idea of giving these guys looks at positions, on the other side of the ball from where folks thought they might end up playing, especially somebody like Malaki Starks. There's nothing that says in 2022 that you can't have a guy that you can put into a situation in high-powered offenses that's just an athlete and put him on the field with guys like A.D. Mitchell and Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers and Eric Gilbert. And I mean, you throw an athlete like Malaki Starks out there, and I mean, it's I just think it's interesting. I don't know that there's anything to be made of it, other than I think you have a guy that is that talented. If you could find a way to get him into a package, as we like to say, on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, why wouldn't you, right? Especially in a defense that Georgia runs that is very complex. If you want to get an athlete on the field early, this could be a good way to do it.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to stunt the kid's development.
No.
But then again, who are we to say we're not looking at him every day in practice? We don't know what this kid's development. Last time I checked, the leading wide receiver returning to the Kansas City Chiefs this year, like the Kansas City Chiefs' best returning wide receiver, he was recruited and started his career at Georgia as a defensive back. That guy. That's the guy we're talking about. And so it's not like it's unheard of that this would happen. Now, do you or I project that to be Malaki Starks' future? No, I don't think either of us do. I think he's got too much talent back there in a safety role or something to that effect. But to your point, if you can, without impeding his ability to learn the defense and integrate himself into practice on that side of the ball, if you can get him on the field in 2022, when you still have a Christopher Smith, when you still have a Tyke Smith, when you still have a William Poole, when you still have all these guys who are just fine and ready to play, then nobody's going to blink an eye if Todd Monk and Kirby Smart find a way to utilize this kid. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to shift gears. We're going to talk about the offensive line, because this is a position group that really has some battles. But before we do that, want to let you know about the fine folks over at Stat Hero. It's March Madness time. John, the Final Four, who you got? Give us a real quick, both games, national champion. Who you got, John?
Duke, North Carolina meeting for the first time in tournament history.
Unbelievable.
How is that?
If you're a basketball fan, it's unbelievable.
How is that a real stat? I
That's
still don't believe that's real. Coach K is going to have the refs, home cooking. So that's already been determined.
That's right. This is the Nick Saban of college basketball, y'all. It's not.
I'm going to have to go with for that reason. I'm going to have to go with Duke and Kansas, and I think Kansas is going to win it in the end.
Let's hope so.
That's my thing.
Let's hope so. Listen, Stat Heroes NCAA single game pick'ems. This is a perfect way to watch the Final Four. It pits star players against each other in an amazing hybrid between fantasy and sports gambling. Take control back from the handicappers that always seem to have the advantage. Focus on the players that you know best in the format that you like. Don't rely on choosing big spreads or long odds or funky props. This single game pick'em has dozens of lineups that you can comb through to find your perfect head-to-head matchup. Sign up for free today, right now at stathero.com/locked-on and use that promo code for a 100% deposit match. That's a 100% deposit match on your first deposit. That's stathero.com/locked-on. Use the promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. stathero.com/locked-on. Promo code LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions apply. Also want to let you know about Built Bar. Built Bar is the tastiest protein bar on planet Earth. They come in a wide variety of delicious flavors, all of which can be found at BuiltBar.com. All of which are keto approved, if that's the diet that you find yourself on at this point in your life. T's and P's to you, but enjoy a Built Bar. They're all high in protein. They're all high in fiber. They're all low in sugar. Put one in your desk drawer. Put one in your glove compartment when you're taking the kids to soccer or when you get called into that afternoon meeting. Built Bar is the thing to reach for. It is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. Clint and I both love them. We've tried all the flavors, and all of them can be found at BuiltBar.com. Enter the promo code LOCKEDON15. That's LOCKEDON15 for a 15% off your first order. That's 1 box, 2 boxes, 100 boxes of Built Bars, 15% off your entire first order at BuiltBar.com when you use the promo code LOCKEDON15. All right, John. Offensive line. Break down this current UGA offensive line situation for us. Just give the listener who maybe, obviously hasn't been checked in the offseason. Jamari Sawyer is kind of the big name that is moved on. But where does Georgia stand in terms of the rest of the offensive line moving into the spring?
Yeah, so you had 2 big losses on that offensive line. You had Jamari Sawyer and you had Justin Schaefer that moved on to the NFL. You have Tate Ratledge, who started last year as a starter in game one.
That's right. Game one.
On the
first
play
of the season.
First play of the game. Had a foot injury that is a midfoot injury, which for any normal person after that surgery that he had is going to take 6 to 12 months to get back to normal. You can only imagine a guy of his size.
Yeah, I was going to say, is Tate Ratledge a normal person? Is this what we're describing here? No.
So so it's going to be a little bit for Tate to get back, and so he's out for the spring. So that's 3 guys that if you look at the 2 that got in the NFL, if you look at Tate, if he was healthy for the spring, he'd probably be in this rotation. So you're looking at really across the front. You're looking at Broderick Jones, who made some starts last year, played big in the national championship. You're looking at
Xavier Truss.
Xavier Truss. I said his first name and I forgot it. Cedric Pran, Warren Erickson, and Warren Mclendon are the way that kind of Georgia has kind of started across that offensive line. These are all guys that have very varied experience in the program, but they all have experience in the program. These are highly recruited, very talented guys. You have Erickson and Mclendon and Van Pran, who played a lot.
They played a lot. That's a lot of experience.
a lot of experience on that side. And then you have Broderick Jones, who played a lot last year.
A lot of meaningful snaps.
Meaningful.
Very
that's what I was
meaningful. Yeah.
Absolutely. Georgia put a Broderick Jones in the game last year in situations where they needed to win the game, where they were situations where the offensive line was getting beat, and they plug him in to actually stop a situation from happening. And he rose to the occasion. So when you look at that lineup, really for me, I think Broderick Jones, we can talk about how we think, maybe they're going to line up. But I think in the spring, I think you have to look at Broderick Jones, Van Pran, Erickson, Mclendon as kind of staples. Then you have that left guard situation where there's been some rotation and some competition. Well, what's happening, as happens every spring, is now that competition is growing beyond that one spot where you thought like, well, here's a little question mark, and these other guys are probably solid. Now you're starting to see some guys make some push for some playing time and make some push to get into the rotation. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
It will be. It will be. And in case you didn't watch the quarterbacks episode, let us remind you, no one is a starter on this team. There's no starters on the team. That's not just rhetoric. That the coaching staff actually believes that, whether you believe them or not. They are all competing for jobs right now. And so that's the way that it is.
I think what listeners need to understand about the Georgia program is every coach and every person on the support staff are competing for jobs. Kirby runs a program that is built on competition, because if Kirby Smart believes one thing, he believes that competition makes everyone better and makes everyone rise to the occasion. And so
Jalen Carter is a dang near lock to be a top 10 NFL draft pick next year. And he is not guaranteed. He is competing for a starting job. And again, I know you're listening to this, some of you, and you don't believe that. You just simply don't believe me when I say that. But you better just get on board, because that's the way that it is. All right, let's talk about, in the next segment, let's talk about some new names that might break into this competition. But let's just stick with these names that we've got right here, John. And I don't want you to say who is most likely to start. What I want you to say is, of the names that we mentioned, and let's just go back over them. We got Broderick Jones, we got Sedrick Van Pran, we got Warren Erickson, we got Warren Mclendon.
Yep.
Those four names, those four dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the best offensive lineman of the four? Who's the guy that not necessarily you think is most likely to start, but the guy you want to start, the guy you want to see in there, the guy who gives you the most confidence?
Yep. Yeah.
Who is it?
Oh,
that's what I'm asking. I'm asking you.
You're asking me now. Okay.
I'm asking you this question.
Thought we were rolling into the other segment. We were going to ask that in the next segment. For me, I'm gonna be that guy and say Broderick Jones. Like it's tough between Sedrick Van Pran and Broderick Jones, but both of those guys, I'll go with Broderick Jones just because I think he is an absolute. He has the potential to be an absolute dominant force at left tackle, which is one of the most critical positions on the entire field. Sedrick Van Pran is probably the best of the group in terms of the total offense.
He might be.
Yeah.
End of his career, who was a better center at Georgia, Sedrick Van Pran or Trey Hill?
I think it's going to be Sedrick.
Ooh, see, that should make you excited.
And Trey Hill was
excited.
Trey Hill was very good. Yeah.
Pretty darn successful. Georgia fans know that well. All right, we're coming back. We're going to talk about new names who might break into the rotation. Who are the guys that are pushing these guys? Who are some of the new faces that we might see? Certainly on the field on G-Day, we're going to see plenty of them. But who might we even see moving into the fall? But first, I want to tell you about Rock Auto. Rock Auto is your online auto parts superstore. Why would you go to a big box auto parts store where they carry one variety of some of the parts that your car might need, when instead you can just simply log on to rockauto.com and have access to the entire warehouse that the kid behind the counter types into his little computer and tries to say, I'm going to find your part at the warehouse. You can find the part at the warehouse. Do you understand? And then you could just have them mail you that part right to your house. They have
you
every
don't have
part
to
that
deal with, and you don't have to deal with the kid.
the kid with the fake little mustache, the little, he can't quite grow it yet. It's not quite. All right, listen, rockauto.com. Every part your car will ever need, no matter the make, no matter the model, no matter the year, whether it's interior, exterior, mechanical, or cosmetic, rockauto.com has it, and they have it at a reliably low price. Go to rockauto.com right now from the comfort and privacy of your own home. Get your auto parts shipped directly to your house. Save time, save money. And while you're there, put Locked On in the How Did You Hear About It section. It lets them know that we sent you, and it assures that you will get the exact right part that your car needs at the most reliably low price that there is. RockAuto.com, your auto parts experts. All right, John. Now the new segment. Now we're back, and I ask you, we've got those names. Some of them names we've been seeing for years, right? Who are some of the new faces? Now, obviously, we hope that Tate Ratledge will be back in the fall.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know what it will look like to be coming back from this injury. Don't know if he will have lost a step. Don't know where he's at. He certainly is not guaranteed a spot, as we've said. No one's guaranteed a spot. But who are some of the faces besides him that we might see entering into the mix, competing for what looks like there's certainly one spot up for grabs, as you said. But then, as you said in the first segment, it seems as though there could be even multiple spots up for grabs. Who are some of these guys that Georgia fans need to watch out for?
Well, I think the first one is a name that folks have heard and probably are longing to see in this lineup is a guy named Amarius Mims, who I stood in an elevator in Charlotte beside Amarius Mims, and he was the absolute largest human being I've ever been in the presence of.
I'm telling you,
he's 6'7", 330.
At the Arkansas game with Asher.
Yeah. And
the dog walk is coming by, and all Asher wants is to see Jordan Davis. It's all he's there for. It's the only thing he wants in his life. And we're standing there, and we're waiting, and this very nice trombone player was kind enough to scoot over to the side so that my son could see as they're coming through in the dog walk. And Jordan Davis goes by, and he's freaking out, and everything's awesome or whatever. And then Amarius Mims walks by, and Asher turns around and looks at me and goes, "Dad, but who was that? But who is that guy?" Because he makes Jordan Davis look like a normal-sized human person. That's who Amarius Mims is.
It's just insane. So Amarius Mims, 5-star class of 2021, an absolute, not only a mountain of a man, but an absolute gifted athlete. So I think Amarius Mims is going to push for one of the tackle spots. We'll see, we'll see how it shakes out. He's been limited a little bit in spring practice, been in the concussion protocol a little bit, but I think that's a name that you got to watch. Two names that surfaced this week through some reports, that I think we can, you can take some of those with a grain of salt, but I do believe that they're valid. Is a guy named Devin Willock who actually is a redshirt sophomore. He's been around.
He's been around for a minute. Yep,
he's been around for a while. He was actually a 3-star coming out of high school.
Kid,
yeah, didn't get a lot of pub, but Georgia, Matt Luke went up and got him out of New Jersey, and it. I heard this week that he's been getting reps at guard, and then a kid named Micah Morris, who also is a very, very talented kid, class of 2021 kid. He has been getting reps at guard as well. So I think the guard positions, are certainly not solidified at this point. I think Devin Willock and Micah Morris are two names to watch. And again, spring practice, as you mentioned earlier, every position is a competition. So it's all up for grabs. What I love is that guys like Amarius Mims and Devin Willock, some of these guys, have there's been some quotes out there about they understand the position that they are in at the University of Georgia, and their only approach is to be the absolute best player and play to the standard. And then what happens. So it'll be interesting to watch. I think the guard positions are where you need to really lean in. And then I mean, when that guy's healthy and can fight for a spot in that rotation, you better look out. I don't see how Georgia. I mean, it's going to be hard to keep that guy off of that offensive line this year. I think most likely you probably may see him do what Broderick Jones did this past season, where you're in a situation where you got a guy getting beat, and all of a sudden Amarius Mims gets plugged into the line. Could be his situation this year.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Couple things jump out as I'm listening to you talk. Number one, don't act like 3 stars on the offensive line should surprise anyone. All right. Solomon Kinley would have you remember that he was a 3-star kid, under recruited. Nobody wanted him, overweight. Ask the Miami Dolphins if Solomon Kinley can play any football. The other thing that comes to mind is if people get antsy for these kids to play. You get your Broderick Joneses, your Amarius Mims. There's plenty of 5-star talent, especially at the tackle position on this offensive line. But here's what these kids know, because Kirby does a great job of telling them this, and they've seen it now. They've seen it bear out year after year. They know you don't have to be a 3-4 year starter at Georgia to get drafted into the NFL. You understand? Like, that's not how it works.
Nope.
If you go out and play really well your junior or senior year, and that's it, that's all the tape you got, guess what? NFL scouts are still going to line up and drool over you. Ask Trayvon Walker how that works, where you don't get that many reps early in your career, but then all of a sudden, ask Devontae Wyatt what it looks like to be a bit of a late bloomer on the defensive line side of the ball, but still be a high NFL draft pick. Guys know that you don't have to be. It's just gone are the days of like coming in, starting as a freshman, and then playing 3 years and then going to the NFL. That's just not what you need to do.
Kirby had a great quote. He was asked this question about how do you recruit guys knowing that there's all this talent on your team. And he was asked this question heading up to the college football playoff. And there's clips of it on Twitter that you can find. His answer was, I've never had an NFL scout GM ever ask me about how many snaps the kid played in year 1 or 2. They've never asked me about playing time. They've never asked me about who they beat out for a position when they were a freshman. He said we always talk about what kind of player they are in year 3. And so when you look at these guys, I think year 3 and 4 are critical, and Kirby's done a great job of proving that, and will prove it in a big way in this NFL draft. And so that's what I love about this program. I mean, it's a great time to be a Georgia fan, because you're in a situation where you got a lot of talent and you got a lot of guys who are like, you know what, it's fine. I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna battle. I'm gonna compete. But I know I'm playing the long game here because I've seen it pay off, and that's a fantastic position to be in.
And now let me go the other way on you, away from the 5-star talent. And let me just say this as we end the podcast today. It's not every time. But John, if you can attest to this as you think back across years and years. You notice something interesting when you really start to pay attention to recruiting rankings and playing time at Georgia. And that is Georgia doesn't get many 3-star kids. You understand? Like, that's not Georgia Tech doesn't get many 3-star kids either. It's mostly 1 and 2 stars. But Georgia doesn't get many 3-star kids. They don't take many. There's like 2 or 3 per class. But it's very rare that Georgia signs a 3-star kid and that kid doesn't eventually play. It's almost as if the coaches like that kid. And they say, you know what? I think this one can play. I think this one's got some talent.
It's almost as if the coaches don't care about your stars. Almost as if you can play ball, they're going to find you.
So if you're surprised to hear that Devin Willock is in the rotation, he's getting looks at guard, I just don't think you've been paying attention. Because when Georgia goes out and signs a 3-star guard, when they got 4 or 5-star offensive line talent coming in by the drove, when they make a point to go out and sign this kid, it means there's something about this kid they really like. And so maybe we should pay attention. All right. Speaking of paying attention, we'll be back tomorrow. We got a whole nother episode, and we're talking about G-Day. G-Day is just over a week away, and we're going to be talking about what are we looking forward to seeing at G-Day. I hope you will join us here on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast, your team every day. We'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.